Magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today in our first ever town hall discussing teenage pregnancy. Alam naman po natin na ang teen pregnancy ay isang napakalaking problema sa Pilipinas. Kaya po naisipan ng ating host organization na ang Likhaan Center for Women's Health na i-gather lahat tayo upang talakayin natin itong issue na ito. Ito pong town hall ay ginaganap with the participation and support of 27 partner organizations na sama-samang nangangampanya sa Girl Power, ang ating campaign upang maiwasan ang hindi planadong pagbubuntis. Meron din po tayo ngayong 547 confirmed participants coming from all sectors, from civil society organizations, teachers, students, youth organizations. Maraming salamat po na lahat kayo ay nandito ngayon at nanonood. And of course, we wouldn't be able to have this event without the development support of the Embassy of the Kingdom of the Netherlands in the Philippines. Thank you to the Dutch Embassy for your generosity and leadership in the field of gender equality and women's empowerment. We would also like to thank the generosity of our partners Global Affairs Canada and Inter-Paris Canada. Thank you for all the support and for joining us today. Napakaswerte po natin ngayon dahil meron po tayong 5 napakahusay at napakagaling na panel of resource speakers. I-introduce ko po sila habang naka-flash ang kanilang slides at may isi-share po akong info. Fun fact lang po tungkol sa kanila. Tinanong ko po ang bawat speaker natin, what was the hardest or scariest thing you ever went through as a teenager? Para makarelate naman po tayo sa mga teens because of course teen pregnancy is a scary and hard thing to go through. So ano po yung pinakamahirap o nakakatakot na pinagdaanan ninyo nung teenager pa kayo? Ang una po nating speaker ay si Dr. Abe Marinduque. Ang sagot po ni Dr. Abe ay getting caught masturbating. Marami po siguro makaka-relate nun. Hopefully it's not as scary now as it might have been then, but thank you po for sharing that, Sir Doc Abe. Salamat po and welcome. Ang susunod po nating speaker ay si Attorney Beth Pangalanan. Ang sagot naman po ni Attorney Beth ay being brought to parties at 6 p.m. and being picked up at 8 p.m. just when the party was getting started. Ako po, nakaka-relate din po ako doon. So thank you so much po, Attorney Beth. Our third speaker is Councilor Cory Raimundo. Tinanong ko rin po siya, sorry, medyo ngayon ko lang po nakuha, it's on my phone. So sa kanya naman po, scariest thing she had to go through or hardest, I had to go on stage to deliver my declamation piece with chicken pox. I was scared that people might avoid getting near me. So ang hirap nga po naman nun. And of course now with COVID, it's easy to imagine na nakakatakot po talaga na we don't want other people to be near us if we have something. So salamat po. Our fourth speaker is Professor Mary Rosales. Her answer to the question was, my most terrifying fear as a teenager at 16 was that our all-girls high school dance with our partner boys school, that no boy would ask me to dance. In those days, only the boys could ask the girls to dance. So as not to risk being left sitting in a chair while my prettier classmates were being asked to dance, I volunteered to pour out and serve the punch. That way, I would not risk being relegated to the wallflower group. So thank you po, Prof. Mary, for sharing that. I think that's probably still a scary thing for people now. And I commend you on your proactiveness for finding a way, a solution to deal with that. And finally, last but certainly not the least, our final resource speaker is Professor Natsi Verceles. Ang sagot po ni Professor Natsi sa tanong na ito ay, my father was 50 when I was born. So the hardest thing for me as a teenager was having a father who was in his 60s and who was very conservative. So nakaka-relate din po ako dyan. My dad is a bit older as well than my friends' dads. And when he used to pick me up at UPIS, my classmates would say, Ami, nandyan na yung lolo mo. And I'd say, hindi ko yan lolo. Tatay ko yan. So salamat po, Prof. Natsi. And with that, uumpisahan na po natin ang ating virtual town hall. I-explain ko lang po sa inyo ang proseso natin ngayon. In the last few weeks, nag-collect po ang likhaan at ang mga partner campaigners ng mga tanong na patungkol sa teen pregnancy. Napakarami po ng mga video questions na naisubmit. Maraming salamat po sa lahat ng mga nag-participate. Unfortunately, limitado po talaga ang time natin ngayon, so hindi po natin maisasagot ang lahat ng tanong na naipadala. Pero susubukan po namin na sagutin ang 26 na tanong na representative sa mga naisubmit na katanungan. May 4 po tayong mga segment. Ang unang segment ay patungkol sa teen pregnancy, generally yung prevalence, risks, effects on women, and effects on community. Segment 2 naman po is on prevention. Segment 3 is on gender and rights. And segment 4 is on action points. Ano po ang pwede natin gawin? Sa bawat segment, may mapapanood po tayong videos with questions from our viewers. Sasagutin po ng ating mga resource speaker ang mga tanong, and I'm sure we're all going to learn so much from these experts. Experts po talaga sila sa field na to, so we're so lucky to have them here. Tulad po ng nabanggit, we don't have enough time para sa lahat ng katanungan, but please don't worry kasi first pa lang po ito of many events that we're going to have in this campaign on teen pregnancy prevention. And hopefully, pwede po tayong magkaroon ng follow-up na town hall para matalakay ang mga hindi na i-discuss na mga katanungan ngayon. Nire-request din po namin na magbigay po kayong mga nanonood ng feedback ninyo sa ating mga panelists at para sa programang ito. Please feel free na gamitin ang chat box sa Facebook Live or sa YouTube kung saan po kayo nanonood. Kung may mga tanong po kayo, pwede nyo rin pong ilagay doon. Pwede nyo rin ibahagi ang mga feeling ninyo, kung pwede po kayong gumamit ng emoji, kung kayo'y natutuwa or nalulungkot, nagagalit, feeling inspired, etc. Para po may feedback din po kami for future events. Gusto po talaga namin sana na magkasama tayong lahat in person. But since nandito pa rin po ang COVID, we thank you for joining us in this virtual town hall. Finally, important thanks po to our very special guests na sign language interpreters, Ms. Catherine Joy Villarreal, who is a part-time faculty member at the School of Deaf Education and Applied Studies at De La Salle, and a board member of the Philippine National Association of Sign Language Interpreters. We also have Mr. John Lester G. Dig, member of the Philippine National Association of Sign Language Interpreters and special education teacher for the deaf and hard of hearing. Maraming salamat po, Ma'am Joy and Sir John, for being with us today. And now, without further ado, magsimula na po tayo. Panuorin na po natin ang unang mga tanong.
Si Rain Rose Lunado, 20 years old. Bakit dumarami ang mga batang maagang nabubuntis?
Ako si Imelda Mogote. Ano po ba ang posibleng dahilan ng maagang pagbubuntis?
So si Ma'am Cory po ang mag-uumpisa for answering. Ma'am Cory, wala po yata si Ma'am Cory in the room. Prof. Mary or Prof. Natsi, would either of you or Doc Abe, would any of you like to start off on this question?
Why don't we get Doc Abe?
Sige po, Doc Abe.
Bakit maraming kabataan ang nagbubuntis ngayon? Ang maiisip kong dahilan, isa sa mga dahilan ay dahil naglipana na ang social media at sa mga social media nakikita natin na mas open ang mga tao sa sex, kumbaga sa discussion of sex. Isa ito sa mga rason or reasons why I think the young ones now, the teenagers, the teens are more open to sex and they're more open to engage in sexual intercourse. Ewan ko, pero ano sa palagay mo, Dr. Beth? Oh, Attorney Beth.
Well, oh my gosh. Yeah. Definitely, ako pa naman dapat sa akin lecture. Pero ang tingin ko, dahil na rin sa net, mga western fields, na ang mga ang tanging paraan, pinaka-siguradong paraan na mapapagmamahal ang isang tao ay kung magkaroon kayo ng sexual relation. Tapos, wala man ang mga kabataan dahil nga kulang ang natututunan nila tungkol sa sex education. Kaya, nabubuti sila nila pinaplano. Yun ang tingin ko.
Isa pa, alam mo, meron pa akong isang theory, actually, it's a theory. And we are finding out that yung mga kabataan na yun, actually, mas mabilis mag-mature. Hindi natin alam, could it be physiological, talagang daan ng panahon, o dahil sa exposure sa food, exposure sa social media, mas marami silang kaalaman, hindi natin alam. Pero yan ang napapansin namin na mas mabilis silang mag-mature kumpara ng mga panahon ko. Kumbaga, yung mga nung mga panahon ko, mga 12-year-old ay nagpipiko. Alam niyo ba yung piko?
Yes.
Oh, yun. Ngayon, hindi na. Ang mga 12 years old, nag-internet na lang, nakikipag-Facebook, nakikipag-messenger, mga ganong bagay ba. So, ang kanilang kalaman kumbaga, mabilis na mag-mature. At physiologically also, mabilis na silang mag-mature. Kasi ang kanilang mga menses, ang kanilang menstruation, ay mas maaga na dumarating.
Ma'am Cory, you were reconnected na po. Meron po ba kayong insights on this?
Yes, kasi mga bata ngayon, following kay Abe, no? Mga bata ngayon, very independent na. Well, in the family, maraming families ngayon na magkahiwalay, either OFW phenomenon, o kaya separated yung magulang, o kaya dumadami din ang ating mga live-in situations kung saan mas marami nagkakahiwalay. So yung mga bata, mas may freedom sila o meron silang freedom para maging independent o to do their own activities. Tapos meron pa tayong heightened use of substances these days, no?
Mhm.
Kaya ang nakikita natin ngayon, yung incidence of teen pregnancy or birth rate among the young is getting higher. It's really increasing. Yung total population na fertility rate bumababa. Pero yung sa ating mga teenagers ay nag-i-increase, tumataas. Kaya siguro, ayun, nakikita natin kung ano yung nakikita natin sa general population view, ganun din yung makikita natin yung mga dahilan sa mga individual experiences, not only by the teenagers, but by their families. Ngayon yung mga teenagers din natin, ngayon, nakikita natin yung bang mga nangyayari lalo ngayong pandemya, no? Yung hindi sila gaano, yung mga dati nilang activities, hindi nila magawa. So, nakita din natin na yung mga less educated o yung may low self-esteem ng mga bata, yan din yung maagang nabubuntis dahil yung mga sexual activities nila ay nag-heighten din. Sila din ay nagiging biktima ng sexual coercion dahil mga bata, may mga mas matatanda sa kanila na nagkaka-interest sa ating mga bata. So, yun yung mga samot-saring dahilan kung bakit tumataas ngayon. Nakikita natin, na-observe natin na tumataas yung incidence of teen pregnancies.
Okay. Bago po tayo pumunta sa susunod na set of questions na ang una pong sasagot is si Prof. Natsi, na gusto ko lang po i-share na may nabasa po ako na parang every generation always thinks, di ba po, na ay, ang kabataan ngayon is so out of touch, di ba? Or di ba, like, I read this statement na parang nakarelate talaga ako. Tapos ayun pala, it's from the 1950s. So I think this is a phenomenon that we see again and again, that often, we think na, ay, ang kabataan ngayon. But every generation generally, can have that on others. But okay po. So,
Can I make a comment? Can I add one?
oh, sure po. Sige po.
Yeah.
Sure po.
I think there's another element. Actually, our family system is very compassionate. And although the girl knows she is really afraid when her parents discover she's pregnant, but she inherently knows that they will not throw her out, and her mother will certainly take care of her. We know that from the evidence. The mother responds immediately, especially if she herself has been a teenage mother. But the father will get very upset because he's supposed to uphold the family honor with the community, but eventually his wife tells him, andyan na eh. That's what they say, andyan na eh. That's from my student who did a study of this in Basco, Batanes. So, the fact that the young girl knows, or at least believes, that in this traumatic or distressful situation, in the end, she can rely on her family always to take care of her. And that's the strength of the family system. Thank you.
Thank you po, Prof. Mary. Thank you. Okay, I think we can go to the next clip and then have Prof. Natsi start off with the answer.
Ako po si Christian J. Delavin. Kung ano-ano nga po ba yung panganib o peligro na mayroon sa teenage pregnancy.
Ako po si Jillian Resco. Gaano po kadelikado sa kabataan ang pagbubuntis ng maaga?
Prof. Natsi, go ahead po.
Yes. Okay, so itong sagot natin sa mga katanungan ni Christian at ni Jillian. Ayon sa WHO, at pwede namang i-validate ito ni Doc Abe, ang maagang pagbubuntis ay maaaring may seryosong kahihinatnan sa kalusugan ng mga batang ina at kanilang mga sanggol. Ang mga komplikasyon sa pagbubuntis at panganganak ay ang pangunahing sanhi ng pagkamatay mga batang babaeng may edad na 15 hanggang 19 sa buong mundo. Para sa mga inang may edad na 10 hanggang 19, mas mataas ang peligro ng eclampsia, isang komplikasyon nito sa pagbubuntis kung saan may mataas na presyon ng dugo at pinsala sa atay o bato, puerperal endometritis o infection sa matris, at systemic infections kaysa sa mga kababaihang may edad na 20 hanggang 24. Bukod pa dito, may mga 3.9 million na hindi ligtas na pagpapalaglag. Yung mga babaeng may edad na 15 hanggang 19 na nagaganap bawat taon na nagre-resulta sa pagkamatay ng ina o pagkakasakit at pangmatagalang mga problema sa kalusugan. Ang maagang pag-anak din ay maaaring dagdagan ng mga panganib para sa mga bagong silang na bata. Sa sanggol naman to. Ang mga sanggol na ipinanganak sa mga ina na wala pang 20 na taong gulang ay nahaharap sa mas mataas na peligro ng mababang timbang ng kapanangakan or low birth weight, na paagang panganganak or preterm delivery at malubhang mga neonatal na kondisyon. Ang mabilis na paulit-ulit na pagbubuntis ay isang inaalala rin para sa mga batang ina dahil sa kadagdagang mga panganib sa kalusugan para sa parehong ina at sanggol. Ayon rin sa WHO, mga batang buntis na walang asawa ay nakakaranas ng stigma, hindi pagtanggap ng mga partner, magulang at kapwa kabataan. Ang mga babaeng nabuntis bago ng edad na 18 ay mas malamang din daw na nakakaranas ng karahasan mula sa partner. So maaaring may epekto ang mga ito sa emosyonal at mental na kalusugan. At ito na lang, panghuli, idadagdag ko lang. Kasi hindi ko to alam, no? Dahil ni-research ko to, nakita ko. Ang isang babae ay maaari nang mabuntis kapag siya ay unang nag-ovulate o naglabas na ng ova o itlog mula sa ovaryo. So mga 14 days to, bago ng kanyang unang regla. So nangyayari ito sa ilang mga kababaihan na kasing bata ng 8 taong gulang. At may kilala po akong 8 years old na nagkaregla na, no? Mahalagang malaman na ang unang ovulasyon ay nagaganap bago ng unang regla. Nangangahulugan ito na maaari nang mabuntis ang batang babae bago pa man ang unang regla. So baka Doc Abby can confirm this. Thank you, Abby.
Hangang-hanga naman ako sa sinabi mo. Professor Natsi, wala na ako dapat sabihin at nasabi mo na lahat. Pero magkwekwento ako sa inyo. 35 years na ako sa medisina. I'm an obstetrician gynecologist. I've been in practice for 35 years. I've seen almost all the complications in pregnancy in teens. All right. My 14-year-old, ako nakita, hindi pasyente ko. Pero nagbuntis siya, premature yung baby niya, namatay ang anak niya dahil premature at hindi siya maalagaan sa isang maliit na hospital. Yung 14-year-old ay nag-hemorrhage at dahil sa pag-hemorrhage, wala namang dugong available, namatay din. Ito yung mga senaryo makikita natin sa mga pagbubuntis ng maaga. Alright. Nakakita na rin ako, marami ako naririnig at nakakita na rin ako mismo nakakita ng mga kabataan na dahil sa pagbubuntis at kinahihiyan nila ang kanilang pagbubuntis, natatakot sila na sabihin sa kanilang mga magulang na buntis sila, ay nagpapa-abort, unsafe abortion. At ginagamitan sila ng matutulis na bagay katulad ng kawayan na matulis at ito'y sinasa sa matres at nagkakaroon ng hemorrhage ang batang buntis na ito at nagkakaroon siya ng infeksyon at kung hindi siya mamatay at nalampasan niya itong mga komplikasyon na ito, ang nangyayari, inooperan siya at inaalis ang kanyang matres at ang kanyang ovaryo at wala na siyang kapasidad na magbuntis in the future. Wala na siyang kapasidad na maging ina in the future. Itong mga ito nangyayari, okay, sa mga kabataan na nagbubuntis. Ngayon, hindi ko kayo tinatakot, pero ang ating ang research or rather the data, ang ating mga datos tungkol sa pagbubuntis ng mga kabataan ay ganito. Kung ikaw ay 14 years old and below at nagbuntis ka, ang chance mo na mamatay sa pagbubuntis ay 5 times compared with those who are 20 years old. Okay? Kung ikaw naman ay 15 years old to 19, ikaw ay nagbuntis, ang chance mo na mamatay
I think
ganyan kagrabe.
Thank you po, Doc Abe. Sorry. I'm not sure kung yung internet ko po yung sa inyo, but it got choppy for me. But salamat po, Doc Abe, for highlighting some of those issues. And that was in response to yung mga tanong po as risk of pregnancy. Meron din po tayong mga tanong in the coming clips on risk of pregnancy and adolescents with disabilities. And kayo rin po ang mauunang to answer these, please, after the clip show.
Tatlong tanong yon, Ami. At related lahat yung mga tanong na yun, ano? Una, let's talk about cerebral palsy. Alright, cerebral palsy. Good news, pwede silang magbuntis. Okay? Cerebral palsy ay hindi nakaka-apekto ng fertility ng isang babae. Alright. Ano ang problema ng isang batang buntis na may cerebral palsy? Marami. Unang-una, pwede siya mag-high blood pressure. Okay? High blood pressure, kung mataas ang pressure niya, pwede siya magka-stroke, pwede siya maging paralisado. At kalimitan, ang nangyayari, may premature labor at sabihin, kulang sa buwan ang kanyang magiging sanggol at ito ay malaking komplikasyon sa bata. Ano na mangyayari sa bata? Pwedeng hindi pa mature yung lungs niya, mahirapan siyang huminga, pwede magkaroon ng cerebral yung anak dahil sa prematurity, mga ganung bagay. Pwede rin siya magkaroon ng hemorrhage, pwede rin siya magkaroon ng pag-agas o miscarriage. But ang pinakamalaking problema dyan sa cerebral palsy, kung spastic sila, naninigas sa kanilang mga paa at mga binti at ang kanilang balakang, hindi sila makakaposisyon para manganak. So ang nangyayari kalimitan ang mga may cerebral palsy ay nasi-cesarean section. Isa yan sa mga nakikita namin na madalas sa mga may cerebral palsy na spastic. Kumbaga naninigas ang kanilang mga binti, mga paa at mga balakang. Alright. Ngayon, pag-usapan natin yung may kapansanan, halimbawa paraplegic, hindi sila nakakalakad, hindi sila nakakatayo at they're wheelchair bound. Ano nangyayari sa kanila? Ganon din ang mga komplikasyon. Premature labor, cesarean section, mga ganon. Pero ang problema sa mga may spinal cord injuries, tawag namin doon spinal cord injuries kasi may nagka-problema sila sa spinal cord kaya sila paralisado. Yung mga yon, depende sa level ng kanilang spinal cord injuries, depende sa problema nila sa spinal. Sila magkaroon ng what they call, autonomic dysreflexia. It's a scientific term, pero ang ibig sabihin nito, bigla na lang tumataas ang kanilang presyon, nagkaka-stroke sila, mga ganong bagay, na mahirap i-control. Alright? At isa pa rin na problema sa kanila, nahihirapan sila dahil lumalaki ang kanilang matres, bumibigat sila, kaya mas nahihirapan sila sa mobility. Alright? Ito yung mga problema ng mga paraplegics sa pagbubuntis. Alright? Maliban doon sa mga talagang komplikasyon ng pregnancy na katulad ng high blood pressure, diabetes mellitus, mga ganon. Ano? Ngayon, pag-usapan naman natin yung mga may mental, hindi dapat tinatawag na mental retardation anymore. We have to, ano ba tawag natin ngayon? Mental disability. Issues, mental disability. Yeah. All right? Ngayon, I have to emphasize that they also have the right to have a family. They have the right to get pregnant. They have the right to have a child. They also have the right to use contraception. Palaging sinasabi natin mga disabled, mga paraplegic, mga cerebral palsy cases, mga mentally disabled, na wala silang karapatan na manganak. Wala silang karapatan na gumamit ng contraception, ng family planning. Kaya pag minsan napapansin nyo na nakakaligtaan sila, hindi dapat. Dahil may mga karapatan silang katulad ng karapatan ng mga normal na kababaihan. Right? Ngayon, doon sa may mga mental disability, maliban sa mga komplikasyon ng pregnancy, meron din silang problema sa pag-aalaga ng kanilang sarili habang sila ay buntis, sa pag-aalaga ng kanilang anak habang kung ito ay nailog. Ang mga kababaihan na may mental disability ay kailangan natin ng suporta natin. Suporta ng pamilya, suporta ng community para hindi mapunta, they're not placed into a dangerous situation, the mother and the child. Siguro I'll just stop there, Ami.
Salamat po, Doc Abe. And thank you so much, sir, for mentioning the very, very important point that people with disabilities also have reproductive health needs and have the same rights to be able to access information as well as the clinical services that they need. And parang shout out ko lang po sa mga lahat ng nanonood na mga CSO, katulad din po ng organization ko na pinag-usapan po namin to very recently with in a panel discussion that we were part of, dahil way too often nakakalimutan po ang hindi lang kababaihan, but the people living with disability, and we really have to make sure na hindi po sila makalimutan at mabigyan po sila ng services, matutukan po sila, not only to make sure na to try to reduce their vulnerability from abuse, but also to give them access to contraception para ma-realize po nila ang kanilang sexual and reproductive health rights. So salamat po, sir. And our next set of questions are about the effects naman po of maternal complication on the babies. So pa-roll na po yung questions.
Hi, ako po si Rika Jane Ignacio. Meron po akong infection. May posibilidad po bang maawa yung pinagbubuntis ko?
Ako si Raisa Lindison. Sakali bang magkaroon ako ng komplikasyon sa panganganak, ako ba ang maapektuhan o ang aking anak?
All right. Let's start with infection. Whatever infection the mother has, pwede niya itong ibigay sa kanyang anak. Let me give you specific examples. All right. Halimbawa, ang ina o ang buntis ay may syphilis. Ang syphilis kasi ay pwedeng maapektuhan yung anak habang nasa sinapupunan pa. All right. Pwedeng mamatay yung anak niya habang nasa sinapupunan pa. Pwedeng magkaroon ng congenital anomalies. Pwedeng magkaroon ng mental disability yung anak. Alright. Ano mga nakikita ko ng congenital anomalies? Pango ang yung halimbawa. Okay? May problema ang kanilang mga buto. Katulad ng kanilang legs ay medyo curved ang kanilang mga legs, mga ganong congenital anomalies. Alright? Okay. So, nangyayari na ang impeksyon ng nanay ay pwedeng mapunta sa bata. Pag-usapan naman natin yung HIV, alright? Or AIDS. Kung ang ina ay may HIV or AIDS, pwede niya ibigay ito sa anak. Ang virus ay pwedeng mag-travel to the baby, through the blood system. Okay? To the blood system. So, ano nangyayari? Nagkakaroon ng HIV ang anak. Hindi pa na iluluwal, ay nagkakaroon na ng HIV yung anak. Paano natin ito mapipigilan? Alright. Yung mga kababaihan na may HIV na ginagamot ng mga antivirals, mas maganda ang kanilang prognosis. Dahil karamitan, ang kanilang mga anak ay hindi nagkakaroon ng HIV. Kung nalalampasan nila yung infeksyon. Alright. Pag-usapan natin yung mga very common infections, katulad ng chlamydia at saka gonorrhea. Ito yung pinaka-common na infections. Sexually transmitted ito. Ano nangyayari? Kung hindi makuha ng bata habang nasa loob pa ng sinapupunan ng ina, pwede niya makuha habang iniluluwal yung bata. Anong mangyayari sa gonorrhea? Pwede siyang magka-conjunctivitis yung bata. Pwede pumunta sa utak yung infeksyon na gonorrhea. Ganon din sa chlamydia. Alright? So, sa nanay ay maibibigay sa matatransmit sa anak. Kaya anong infeksyon ng nanay? Alright? Ay mapupunta sa bata. Alright. Flu. Emphasize ko sa inyo ito, ang mga nagbubuntis, alright, kailangan nila ng flu vaccine, halimbawa, para hindi sila maka-flu. Kasi ang flu, meron din komplikasyon dun sa bata habang nasa sinapupunan pa. Alright. Pertussis. Ang mga pregnant women kailangan magkaroon ng vaccine against pertussis, tetanus at saka pertussis. Kasi kung wala silang bakunang ganito, ang bata pag nailuwal na at nakakuha ng pertussis kung saan man, malaking problema ito sa bata. Pwede ikamatay ng bata actually. Ang pertussis. Ito yung whooping cough na tinatawag, hindi makahinga ang bata kasi ubo ng ubo. Alright. So, mga ganung bagay. Itong ating COVID ngayon, ang rekomendasyon ngayon lahat ng pregnant women dapat mabakunahan. ng COVID. Dahil kung hindi man makuha ng bata ang COVID sa habang nasa sinapupunan pa ng ina, ay pwedeng makuha ng bata ang COVID kung nailuwal na at wala siyang antibodies na naibigay ng nanay na nabakunahan against COVID. Alright? Kaya importante na ang babae, ang pregnant woman is actually aware that these infections can be transmitted to the child.
Okay, Doc Abe, salamat po. Yes, and as has been stated, it's mas marami po tayong magagawa for the health and safety of the mother at ng sanggol na dinadala niya kung planado po yung pagbubuntis at alam ng babae o nung bata na buntis sila. And this is why we've always been saying na whether it's nutrition or just general health, importante po talaga na planned ang pregnancies because then they can access prenatal care earlier. So salamat po, sir. Unfortunately, we are running short on time already. We're trying to stay on track kasi ang dami po talagang mga tanong. So we're going to go straight to the last set of questions for this section, which are on the effects of teen pregnancy in general and on the community. And we'll particularly ask Prof. Mary, Prof. Natsi, and Doc Cory to weigh in on the answers to the questions in the videos. So pa-play na lang po ng effects of teen pregnancy in general and on the community.
Do you want me to start?
Gusto ko pong malaman kung ano po ang epekto sa komunidad ang pagbubuntis ng maaga.
Bakit nga po nagiging problema ang teenage pregnancy?
Paano at ano ang magiging epekto ng maagang pagbubuntis sa aming komunidad?
Prof. Mary, go ahead po.
All right, so let me start. Siguro, there are a couple of things I want to say here. What community are you talking about? If it's yung mga ordinary urban poor, rural poor communities, where people more or less in yung mga clusters nila, kailangan, they know one another, they really accept it. Parang normal in the sense it's in the range of what happens and ganun talaga. They usually don't condemn the girl, and they leave it up to the family. It's the family that has to take care of it. It's kind of the orientation. It's quite permissive or understanding, or you might say compassionate. Now, for the family, of course, it's a big, has a big impact. While in the end, they may, of course, accept and take care of the child and the mother of the child, it has a very big effect on their expenses, especially in poor communities where they live very close to the line. And it means another child, of course, may gatas yan, there's diapers, which they had not planned for, but that has to be the priority. So they make do with that, but they have to give up other things. And for the girl not to go to school, if she was going to school, is a big tragedy for them, because that is the strategy of how poor people, especially urban, are trying to get out of poverty. Baka naman, hindi naman sa generation na ito, but in the next generation, at least that their children will get a formal job na may sweldo, may benefits, which will have a benefit for the family. In the longer term, then, it simply reinforces the poverty of many of the families in the community. And that is seen as very unfortunate.
Thanks, Prof. Mary. Prof. Natsi or Ma'am Cory, anything to add po?
Yes. Usually, or pangkaraniwan, pag nabuntis ang isang bata, siyempre wala naman silang access pangkaraniwan sa contraception, o kasi dahil bata sila, yung information level nila sa kanilang pangangatawan, sa paano mag-iwas sa pagbubuntis, sinusundan yan. Nasusundan ng another pregnancy. So, as Mary was saying, that will doubly be a burden on the finances of the family. At pangkaraniwan, hindi hindi naman na iniiwan eh. Maraming iniiwan ang batang babae na nabuntis nung nakabuntis sa kanya. Kaya yung burden mostly would be on the family of the girl. At yung lalaki, many times, they just get scot-free. Although meron namang nagsasama. Pag nagsama naman sila, silang dalawa, yung future nila to earn good living will be curtailed. Dahil nga they have to take care of the baby. Ngayon, napakamahal ng mag-hire ng kasambahay. Kaya they will have to make do with their own resources para alagaan at itaguyod yung bata. At saka hindi pa nila masyadong alam kung paano magmagulang. Kaya yung pagmamagulang nila would be kind of limited to take care of the child and bring the child into a good future. No? May mga pag-aaral din na sinasabi na yung mga nabuntis, pangkaraniwan nga natitigil sa pag-aaral, either forced dahil sa kanilang pangangailangan para alagaan yung bata at saka hindi na sila tinatanggap sa paaralan. Minsan, kahit nila gustong bumalik sa pag-aaral, napakahirap din dahil ang ating teen pregnancy ay mas madalas nangyayari dun sa mga low resources ang mga pamilya o ang area. Kaya yung it's really a cycle of hardships for the young people, especially for the girl. So sa komunidad, siyempre, ang mga health services natin will also be burdened. Kasi sabi nga natin, mas maraming komplikasyon, maraming pangangailangan, o yung mga pag-take care ng ating mga nabubuntis at ng mga kabataan. Kaya samot-sari talaga yung mga epekto mula sa individual, kakabit na no, yung pamilya hanggang sa komunidad. Health services are also, lalo ngayong pandemya, lagi ko binabalik itong ating COVID situation ngayon, mas maraming violence na nangyayari, violence against women. So meron dyan mga pagbubuntis na hindi naman nila, usually ang pagbubuntis ng isang batang babae, young girls, will be unplanned. So even if it is in a way with consent yung kanilang sexual activity, burden pa rin. At yung kadalasan naman may mga sexual coercion dahil bata nga, yung mga nagnanasa sa kanila ay mas nakakatanda. So, merong mga power problem dyan eh. Siyempre, para mga otoridad yung mga lalaki, so napipilitan nito mga babae kahit na hindi nila gusto na makipagtalik dito sa mga lalaki nito. So what does that do to the community? Medyo imbalance to power, no? And I think the whole community will not be agreeable to this kind of kaya nagkakaroon ng mga dysfunctions in the community between families maybe and between groups of people.
Ami?
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead, Nancy.
Yeah, just kasi I know that we're running out of time, but I feel that I need to make this point lang. I'm so sorry ha. Kasi we keep on talking about teenage pregnancy as a problem, pero hindi na natin pinoproblematize. Di ba problema din ang pagtingin natin sa sex, di ba, at sexual rights ng kabataan. Hindi natin sila tinitignan na mayroong karapatang sexual, na nangangahulog ang may karapatan sila sa kagalingan at kasiyahang sexual. So napaka-conservative pa rin po ang ating pananaw no, ukol sa sex. Tinatanggihan natin ang pagkilala na ang mga kabataan ay may karapatang sexual at iginigiit natin na hindi sila dapat nagse-sex. Okay? Patuloy natin ginagamit ang hindi mabisang mga pagtingin sa teenage pregnancy na nagbibigay sa pagkontrol sa populasyon, karahasan, panganib sa kalusugan, at mga panlipunan at pang-ekonomiyang epekto kaysa sa mga pangangailangan sexual, kagustuhan, kasiyahan ng mga adolescents. So, yung reframing ba na hindi natin nakikita pa, di ba? So, gusto ko sanang pag-isipan din ng mga tao yun, yung sexual rights, hindi lang yung kanilang health, kundi sexual rights ng kabataan. Yes, Doc.
Agree.
Thank you, Doc.
Very true.
Prof. Natsi,
Agree,
thank
Natsi.
you.
Maganda
Thank you
yung
so
binigay
much.
ngayon, Natsi.
Agree.
Yes
Thank you
po. Prof. Natsi, thank you for raising that. All too often, pag pinag-uusapan po natin ang teen pregnancy, no? As you said, we're problematizing it and it's so easy to
Yes.
forget that there is a young person involved na may karapatan and may rights. And interestingly, I actually just read recently na yung iba pong mga teen pregnancy prevention programs that in research has been shown to work is ang focus po sa mga magulang is na tulungan yung mga magulang na mas maging komportable sa kanilang sexuality para mas maging komportable sila sa sexuality ng mga anak nila. And I think in the Philippines, especially since intergenerational po ang ating parang repression on talking about sexuality, I think that that's something that we really should be focused on. Na, you know, people need to be more comfortable with the fact that humans are sexual beings and young people are having sex instead of always parang, you know, just focusing on bawal yan, wag mo yan gawin, you know, and instead focusing on the rights of the young people involved. So, maraming salamat po. This concludes the first section pa lang. It's been so exciting to hear all of our resource panelists continue to expound on this topic, and maraming questions pa po ang parating. Thank you to everyone who is using the chat box. We're seeing your comments, and I think many of them are being flashed on. So please keep them coming. Like I said, this concludes our first segment, and we're now going to see a short infomercial from one of our partners, the Family Planning Organization of the Philippines. And then diretso na po tayo sa unang mga tanong for segment 2, which tackles prevention of teen pregnancy. And Professor Mary will be the first to answer after those videos. Salamat po.
FPUP is working with and for community. We are key implementer in youth-friendly sexual reproductive health services. We have numerous initiatives to reach and serve more people, especially the vulnerable young people. Also, peer-to-peer approach is effective in ensuring that young people will freely access SRH services. It is important to invest in young people through capacity buildings that will empower them as peer educators and agents of change.
Mabawasan dahil sa dami ng programa na pinapatupad about reproductive health, marami pa rin yung mga batang maagang nagbubuntis. Ano po kaya ang mas effective na paraan para mas babawasan ang bilang ng mga batang maagang nagbubuntis?
Ano po yung alternative para maiwasan mga kabataan yung maagang pagbubuntis?
Kung nagbuntis sila ng maaga, paano po ang mga tamang pamamaraan ng paggabay sa kanila para mas maging maayos ang buhay nila kahit na sila ay mga batang ina?
Go ahead, Prof. Mary.
Okay. Several things, sex education, comprehensive sex education is of course crucial. Now, mostly that comes to school, which is fine. But the question is, are schools really doing it? Are they really carrying it out, and is that being monitored? What are the results? We have to know that. But the problem is that there are also many girls who are out of school, and boys who also should know, right? Who are out of school. And that is where there is really a lack on the barangay level. Where are the programs of the government for young people who are not in school? I think that's what needs to be strengthened. Then we have to look at, in a way, the causes. There's a difference between the 16-year-old girl boy who fall in love, and that's one set, and she gets pregnant. But the ones who are, say, mostly 15 and below, who are subjects of incest or even rape, that's another whole story of what you can do there. And there, the parents have to get to know more about the situation. If there are violators in the household, that must be known. And there are communities that have done that. You can ask, actually in Cebu, there's many good examples I know, where the community gets around and just beats on pants when they hear the father beating the mother or know that something like incest is going on. But the community has to take it as their issue. And that's why it needs more discussion with the community, because it's also a community responsibility, especially in the case of rape and incest, especially when the younger girls are considered. And I think finally is access to contraception. That issue has to be resolved because it's happening, and especially the ones who are 16 and above, they are going to continue. So is it not more appropriate then to consider the contraception alternative? That's it.
I 100% agree, Prof. Mary, and yeah, it's really important that the community not turn a blind eye. Lalo na po, we've seen so often that with a lot of the very young girls who get pregnant, their partners are much older than they are, and this is something that often people in communities see and maybe just tolerate. And as you said, access to contraception, this is so important, and one of the things that I think really needs to be reiterated is that at the barangay level, the first point of access that a young person has is the barangay health center. So kailangan po yung mga barangay health workers, that they are compassionate, that they have youth-friendly services, and that that they will provide support to the young people and not tell them to come back when they already have a baby, which is so often what happens when someone tries to access contraception before they have a child. But I'm glad that you mentioned contraception, because the next set of questions is on contraceptive effectiveness and safety, and we'll be asking Doc Abe to weigh in on that after we see the clips.
Ano po ka-epektibo ang family planning? Ligtas ba ang family planning sa mga kabataan?
Ligtas po ba sa kabataan ang gumamit ng contraceptive?
Kung safe po bang gumamit ng contraceptive ang bata pa po at wala pa pong anak?
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the questions. Importanteng malaman ninyo na ang mga contraceptives na meron sa Pilipinas, katulad ng birth control pills, implant, Depo-Provera, yan yung injectables, at IUD, lahat ng mga yan ay safe sa kabataan. Alright. Ngayon, may isang nagtanong kung safe ito sa wala pang anak. Okay. Lahat ng ito na nabanggit ko ay safe. Wala pang anak, wala pang pagbubuntis. Alright. Ang dapat nating isipin, pag nagbuntis ang isang teenager, ay ang komplikasyon ng pagbubuntis. Okay? Mas maraming komplikasyon ang pagbubuntis sa teenage, alright, kaysa komplikasyon ng mga contraceptives, ng mga family planning methods. Now, ito ba ay epektibo? Lahat bang ito ay epektibo? Lahat ng nabanggit ko, birth control pills, Depo-Provera injectables, implants, IUD, lahat yan effective. Lahat yan 99% effective. Anong ibig sabihin ng 99% effective? That's sa yan pag talagang iniinom ang pills, dumarating ang pasyente para sa kanyang injection every 3 months sa Depo-Provera, lahat yan ay 99% effective. Kung nakakaligtaan, bumababa yung effectiveness. Pero sabihin na natin na walang nakakaligta ng birth control pills halimbawa, 99% effective yan. Ibig sabihin nun, sa 100 na users ng birth control ang mabubuntis. Alright. Anong mangyayari dun sa baby na na-expose sa birth control pill? Wala. Walang congenital anomalies, hindi nakaka-apekto ng kalusugan ng bata, walang komplikasyon na nangyayari sa bata. Alright. Ganon din sa implant. Kung nagbuntis ang isang babae na may implant, wala ring nangyayari sa kanyang magiging anak. Walang congenital anomalies, walang abnormality, walang epekto sa kalusugan ng bata. Alright. Ngayon, kung halimbawa na isang teenager on birth control pills at hindi niya nakakaligtan niya paminsan-minsan, anong nangyayari? Ang effectiveness ng birth control pills ay nagiging 91%. Effective pa rin. Dahil sa 100 na gumagamit ng birth control pills at paminsan-minsan ay nakakaligtaan nila, siyam ang magbubuntis. At let me emphasize na dun sa siyam na na-expose sa birth control pills na babies, walang nangyayari sa kanila. Hindi ito nakakasama sa pagbubuntis. Alright? So, in summary, ang sasabihin ko sa inyo, sigurado po ako at sigurado po ang siyensya, ang science, na lahat ng mga nabanggit ko na birth control ay effective, 99% effective plus, at they're all safe, at mas maraming mga komplikasyon ang pagbubuntis kaysa paggamit ng birth control.
Thank you so much po. Yeah, thank you, Sir Doc Abe. Thank you very much for that. It's very clear. Contraceptives are safe to use by young people. So often po, marami pong mga misconceptions, maraming naniniwala na kabataan na kailangan magkaanak muna sila bago sila pwede gumamit ng family planning. So that's why it's so important to try to get young people on contraception before that first pregnancy. Kasi nga po, like you said, Doc Abe, mas dangerous sa kanilang kalusugan ang maagang pagbubuntis kaysa ang paggamit ng contraception, which is not dangerous at all. So what we're going to do now is may mga tanong po on contraceptive efficacy and the safety, which actually Doc Abe has sort of answered already. So we're going to go to some questions on contraceptives and their use, and then straight into some questions about the legalities of these issues, the parental consent issues. And we'll be asking our esteemed attorney, Beth, for her insights on this. This is a very tricky topic and something that I think is very interesting to everyone. So we'll go first, please, to the videos. Kung pwede pong for our amazing tech team, kung pwede po clip 17 and then straight to 19 on the parental consent so that Doc Abe and Attorney Beth and then any of the other panelists can weigh in as well.
Kailangan po ba ng reseta para makabili ng pills sa botika? Sa ibang botika, nakakabili sila ng pills kahit walang reseta, samantalang sa ibang botika, hindi naman sila pinagbibilhan nito. Paano po ba makakabili ang teenagers ng pills kung wala po silang reseta?
Alam po sana kung ano pong magandang family planning po na hindi po makapagpigil sa akin pag-breastfeed.
Gustong gumamit ng kabataan ng contraceptive pero ayaw ng magulang nila. Paano po nila maiiwasan ang maagang pagbubuntis?
May nalabag po ba ako na right ng magulang sa kanyang anak na sinamahan ko sa clinic para mabigyan ng contraceptive?
Ayan. So, actually, Doc Abe was already able to answer some of the questions on contraceptives, but I guess the first question, which actually I think Attorney Beth could also take, do you need a prescription for pills and others? And then let's dive right into all those complicated legalities, Attorney Beth, on young people using contraception.
Well, yung nangyari dun I will start with the law. Nakasulat doon yung original version ng RPRH law na ang kabataan na hindi kailangan kumuha ng consent sa magulang para makabili ng contraceptive pills or kumuha ng serbisyo. Pero di ba doon sa kaso ng Imbong versus Executive Secretary, sabi ng Korte Suprema, hindi daw constitutional yon na pwedeng magpunta ang mga kabataan sa clinic or bumili o kumuha ng supplies na walang parental consent. Yun ang ating problema. Dahil nga sinabi ng Korte Suprema na hindi yun pwede. Ang natitirang pwede at constitutional ay yung humingi lang information. So, hindi kailangan ng parental consent. Kaya, although sa paniniwala ko at kasama naman din ako doon sa tumulong na magpahusay nung bill pala, ng RH bill, no, tumulong din naman ako noon kasama ang likhaan. Ang gusto sana namin ay hindi na kailangan ng parental consent at maiwan na lang ang parental consent para doon sa ligation, sa mga permanenteng pamamaraan ng family planning. Pero wala tayong magagawa dahil sa batas at sa desisyon ng Supreme Court sa imbong case, kailangan na ang parental consent. Kaya yung may nagtanong kanina na meron ba siyang pagkakamali ba yung tanong niya o may hindi ba siya tamang ginawa dahil sinamahan niya yung bata, meron, no? Kasi nakalagay sa ligang batas din, sa constitution natin, na ang mga magulang, they have the primary right, no, and duty to rear their children. So ang pangunahing mga taong magpapalaki at magtuturo sa mga anak ay ang mga magulang. Kaya kung sabihin nila na hindi pwede, ay dapat wala ng iba na na kahit adult ka o tita ka, auntie, no, o kahit ninang, walang karapatan para pag-uwin ang desisyon ng mga magulang. So, para sa akin, unfortunately, ganon. Pero wala tayong magagawa kasi yun ang batas. So, kaya sabi ko nga, mahirap itong sabi mo kanina na tricky, talagang tricky kasi that's the law, that's where we start with. No? So, ang kailangan tingin ko is to educate the parents, as we said earlier, para they will realize na ang kabataan ay merong mga karapatan. So, although in the Constitution, sa saligang batas, sa family code, parental authority is exercised by the parents jointly over their legitimate children at sila talaga ang magdedesisyon kung anong reliyon, saan mag-aaral, kung dadalhin pa sa ospital o hindi. So, kasama lahat din ang desisyon tungkol sa kalusugan ng produksyon. No? So, ang kailangan baguhin, I would say, ay yung mga pag-iisip ng mga magulang for them to realize that pag sabihin lang nila sa mga anak nila na bawal or wag, hindi naman necessarily susundin yun ng mga bata. At ang mangyayari lang dahil wala silang access to contraceptives, ay they will still have sexual relations, magtatalik pa rin sila, at ang kinalabasan nun ay pagbubuntis. So, kailangan natin mas ma-educate ang parents. At saka, when we speak of teenage pregnancy, nakakalimutan natin na teenagers 18 and 19 kasama dyan. Pero ang 18 and 19 are adults. Hindi man nila kailangan kumuha na ng parental consent. No? So, kahit teenagers, pag 18, 19, wala nang consent, hindi na kailangan maghintay ng magulang. Although again, I would say na in a family na malapit sila sa magulang nila, ay magtatanong sila, gagabayan pa rin sila, merong patnubay mula sa mga magulang. So, kailangan talaga, ang nakikita ko, malaki yung role na ginagampanan ng mga magulang para hindi ganito karami ang mga kabataan na nabubuntis.
Attorney Beth, thank you. If I could ask a follow-up question, kasi I 100% agree po sa mga points ninyo. Kailangan po talaga that parents are on board. And I would just remind parents po na may karapatan din po ang mga anak ninyo to know what you are potentially giving them. Kasi meron din pong parents na pumunta sa clinic namin, humihingi ng DMPA para sa anak nila, pero tinanong sa midwife namin, pwede mo bang sabihin sa anak ko na flu shot lang yan? Because they wanted their daughter to be protected. And so, you know, like parents, your child, that's their body. So, you know, minor man sila, they have a right to know what is being injected in them. So, point lang po yun. But Attorney Beth, I think it's so interesting that with the revised HIV law, that they reduce the age where you need parental consent to access HIV testing from 18 to 15 in recognition of the fact that younger people are having sex. Do you think that could happen for contraception since it is the same issue, basically, that young people are having sex? Like, do you think it could ever happen that that age restriction for parental consent could be lowered from 18 to 15?
Yes. In fact, that would be ideal. Kasi, kunyari sa ibang bansa nga, meron silang konsepto ng mature minor. No? Iba edad na, pero ang pag-iisip mature na, nakakaintindi na ng ginagawa niya, kung ano yung gagawin niya, kung ano yung mga desisyon na kailangan. And I think that there should be acceptance that now people, young people have sex, no? So although I would think yung marami sa atin, ang Catholics, na 85% of Filipinos are Catholics, na ang tinuro sa atin is sex should be within marriage. And therefore, dapat wala tayong problemang ganito. But the fact is there is. And if we just deny it, it's not going to solve anything. But to allow it, on the other hand, will not lead to abuse, I think. No? What we have to realize is that the fact that young people have sexual relations, and the goal now is for them to know what this means. No, maybe those in, for instance, we teach sociology, si Ma'am Mary, what the responsibilities are, what it means to be having sex, but that what should we avoid is that sexual relations will result in unwanted pregnancy. So I think that lowering the age to 15 might be a more reasonable and realistic rule. Again, there just must be a way to find out whether these are mature minors, no? And that they know exactly why they want this. And I would like to connect it to something that Doc Abe said some time ago, maybe 20 minutes ago, when it comes to the rights of the disabled, no, na meron silang karapatan at hindi rin sila pwedeng pilitin na kumuha ng contraceptives. O kunyari, kasi may mga kaso na yung magulang gusto naman ipalaybit ang anak niyang babae dahil may mental disability, ayaw niyang mabuntis, kaya ilalaybit niya. So hindi rin pwedeng pilitin sa ibang bansa ito ang taong may disability, mental disability, na magpalaybit dahil ayaw ng magulang. So the point, whether you're talking about people with disabilities or minors, na kailangan naiintindihan nila kung ano ang nangyayari. Dapat ang consent nila informed. So hindi pinipilit at hindi rin tinatago sa kanila kung ano nangyayari sa kanila.
Thank you so much, Attorney Beth. And that actually leads us straight into the next set of questions. It's so important. Paano po magiging informed? How will young people know? Of course, they need comprehensive sex ed. So meron po tayong mga tanong. We've already talked about the need for sex ed, no? So kailangan talagang merong comprehensive sex ed. So for our tech team, I will request na ma-play po ang clips 22 and 23 together, and then Doc Cory and Doc Natsy and Doc Mary can all weigh in, and of course Attorney Beth and Doc Abe, please join as well. But clip 22 is on how to teach sexuality education, and clip 23 naman po is the effects of sexuality education. So let's please listen.
Let me interrupt you. Meron na akong punto, kasi sa reseta, nahihirapan talaga mga kabataan na kumuha ng reseta at bumili ng kanilang mga birth control pills, halimbawa. Ang advice ko sa mga kabataan ngayon is, hindi mo kailangan ng reseta kung bumibili ka ng condoms. Ang condoms ay epektibo rin na contraceptive na family planning. At ang maganda rito ay ipini-prevent din ito ang infection, kung ito ay ginagamit tuwing makikipag-sexual intercourse. Kaya sa mga kabataan, isipin ninyo na maski nahihirapan kayo na kumuha ng mga birth control pills, ang condom ay always available. Maski sa ang convenience store, makakabili kayo. Huwag lang kayo mahiya. Thank you.
Thank you po, Doc Abe. Yes, very important. We often focus on the hormonal methods kasi yun po ang mas may control ang kababaihan, whether it's used or not. But when when there is a partnership in which the males involved are agreeable and the girls can ask them, I mean, it's very important to have that. Pero ang situation po ng marami is pag sinasabi po nung lalaking partner na ayaw nilang gamitin, minsan wala na pong magagawa. So I think that's why, at least for us, we focus a lot on the hormonal na pwedeng yung babae. But as you said, so important, HIV is continuing to rise in the Philippines as well as other STIs. So importante po talaga. So thank you po, Doc Abe. And let's go to the clips on how to teach sexuality education.
Tamang paraan po ba sa pagtuturo patungkol sa sexualidad?
Paano namin maituturo sa mga kabataan yung tungkol sa sexualidad kung kami mismo hindi namin ito pinag-uusapan?
How we teach sex education specifically catered to LGBTQIA+ community. How do we, for example, teach what is safe sex between men and men? What is safe sex between... Do we have programs that cater to, for example, pregnant lesbian teenagers who wouldn't know what to do?
Lalong maging agresibo sa sex pag may family planning ang kabataan.
May mga kabataan na may alam sa family planning, pero bakit mayroon pa rin kabataan na maaga na nagbubuntis?
Pag may family planning, baka magsigi-sige sa sex ang kabataan.
Gaano kalaki ang tsansa na bumaba ang teen pregnancy kapag nag-umpisa na po ang CS?
Ayan. So lots of questions. We can start with Doc Cory and Doc Natsi, and then Ma'am Mary, and of course, Attorney Beth and Doc Abe weigh in whenever you would like as well.
Yeah. Yes, dun sa question na is there a proper way of teaching sexuality or sex education to our kids? Of course. Palagay ko naman it goes without saying that we as adults in school, at home, are responsible for teaching our children, our young people, how to develop healthy life, how to experience their sexuality in a healthy way. Ngayon, may nagsabi dyan sa isang question na paano kami magtuturo ng sex sa aming mga kabataan kung kami mismo ay hindi komportable na magsalita tungkol sa sex. I guess that's a problem, no? Ang ating mga adults, parents, and teachers are really not quite comfortable about the topic, lalong-lalo na sa ating dinevelop na comprehensive sexuality education. In some researches, dito sa atin, nung gusto nang gawing isang programa, itong ating CSE or ating Comprehensive Sexuality Education, maraming mga guro na dapat ang magturo sa kanilang mga estudyante sa loob ng paaralan. Ang number one, hindi masyadong maalam sa topic. And number two, they themselves are not comfortable talking about the issue of sexuality. So maraming mga misconceptions ngayon sa mga nangyayari sa iba't ibang lugar, ano? Yung comprehensive sexuality education, may tanong dyan kung effective ba ito. Sa mga pag-aaral, nalaman natin na depende sa sexuality education, how it is being taught. For example, in some countries, sinasabi na kung abstinence lamang ang nilalaman ng sexuality education, that doesn't do anything about reducing sex among teenagers or even reducing teen pregnancy. However, if the topic deals with how to prevent getting pregnant through contraception, then iyon nakikita na may pagbaba within 5 years, bumaba ng 16% ang teen pregnancy. So, ang sinasabi natin ngayon, yes, contraceptive sexuality education is effective, but it has to be taught in a right way. We have to be thoughtful. We should look at teaching moments, no? Palagi nating titingnan, ay, merong yung nagdaan na batang buntis. We can always say to our young girl, kaibigan mo, buntis na siya ngayon, ano kaya ang kanyang pakiramdam? Ano kaya ang mga nagiging problema niya sa kanyang pangangatawan pag siya ay buntis? So maybe then we can go on talking about the conditions, especially for a young girl who would be who gets pregnant at the very age na alam naman natin, sinabi kanina ni Doc Abe, yung mga komplikasyon ng teen pregnancy ay mas marami at mas malala kaysa doon sa mga taong nabubuntis o babaeng nabubuntis ng mas may edad. So I guess what we can say here is comprehensive sexual education can be very effective, not only in terms of reducing teen pregnancy, the level of teen pregnancy, but also for a young girl to have a better future if she doesn't get pregnant at a very young age. May mga pag-aaral na sinasabi the future income level of at the individual level would be curtailed if a young girl gets pregnant. And likewise, there was a study here in the Philippines na we lose 33 billion pesos kapag kapag ang ating teen pregnancy ay hindi natin mababawasan o hindi maiiwasan.
Thank you po, Doc Cory. Prof. Natsi, would you like to add?
Yes, I'll just address the questions that were assigned to me but were not responded to by Doc Cory. No? So yung una ay baka maging agresibo sa sex pag may family planning ang kabataan, baka magsige-sige sila. Actually, natawa ako sa tanong na to eh. So naniniwala man tayo o hindi na ang kabataan ay may karapatang sexual, kagaya ng inassert ko kanina. Ang katotohanan ay may nakikipagtalik sa kanila at ang kakulangan sa access sa dekalidad na serbisyong pangkalusugan at reproduktibo ay hindi makakahadlang sa kanila. So kung hindi natin tugunan ito, laging nandyan ang posibilidad ng hindi lamang teenage pregnancy na hindi planado, kundi pati na rin ng HIV at iba pang sexually transmitted infection. So hindi ba dapat yan ang ating inaalala no, sa hilip na mag-alala tayo na magsige-sige sila sa sex, di ba? So bilang mga magulang, ang mahalaga ay bukas nating nakakausap ang ating mga anak ukol sa sex para masigurado na handa sila sa emotional na aspeto nito. Alam ko kasi I have children pero they're grown up na, pero dumaan kami dyan, no? At alam nila na kailangang laging may consent o buong pagsasang-ayon ito. Tapos yung tanong po na may mga kabataan na may alam sa family planning, pero ba't meron pa rin sa kanilang nabubuntis na maaga? So, meron dahil hindi lamang kakulangan sa kaalaman sa family planning ang sanhi nito. Maraming posibleng dahilan ng maagang pagbubuntis. No? Ayon sa WHO na naman, ito ay mas malamang na nangyayari sa maralitang at hinalisadong pamayanan at karaniwang hinihimok ng kahirapan at kawalan ng edukasyon at mga oportunidad sa trabaho. So may mga kabataan din na nais mabuntis at nakakahanap sila ng kaligayahan sa pagiging batang ina. Sa pag-aaral ni Professor Sabrina Gacad, may mga nagsabi na ang pagbubuntis at pagkakaroon ng anak ay nagbigay sa kanila ng pakiramdam ng pagkakaroon ng layunin at katuparan sa buhay. So ang mga nais namang iwasan ng pagbubuntis ay may kaalaman sa contraceptives ay maaaring humaharap din sa hadlang sa pag-access sa contraception. Kabilang na dito ang walang pambili. Mahigpit na batas, na pag-usapan na po natin yan. Ang bias ng mga health worker at o kawalan ng kahandaang kilalanin ang mga pangangailangang sa kalusugang sexual at karapatang sexual ng mga kabataan. At isa pang karagdagang sanhi ng teenage pregnancy ay ang karahasang sexual. Nabanggit na rin naman to, di ba? Ayon nga sa UNFPA, 3% lamang ng lahat ng live births sa mga batang babae ay batang lalaki rin ng ama. Ang mga nasabing pagbubuntis ay maaaring resulta ng pamimilit at hindi pantay na kapangyarihan sa pagitan ng mga batang babae at mas nakatatandang lalaki. So yun lang po. Mabilisan lang.
Maraming salamat po, Prof. Natsy. Those are very important points.
Yes.
And yun nga po, no, kailangan talaga not just the information, but also access to the contraceptives themselves. And maliban po sa mga challenges na na-mention yun na, of course, it's not, not just the health workers, sometimes the pharmacists, but just generally, ang hirap din po because of the stigma that a lot of us associate, or well, not us, but that a lot of people associate with sexuality. Karaniwang, marami pong mga kababaihan, kabataan who really want to believe that they're not gonna have sex, even if they want to. Diba? And so sometimes like actually going forward and accessing contraception, starting to use birth control, they have to admit to themselves that they're going to have sex. And minsan napakahirap po gawin nun because of how stigmatized it is in our culture. Attorney Beth, you look like you wanted to add something.
I wanted to say that I spoke to some young people before kasi ang sabi nila, nabuntis sila dahil ayaw nilang magpaon ng condom. No? Yung mga boyfriend nila o sila mismo. Kasi ibig sabihin, pinagplanuhan nila mag-sex. Masama daw yung nagpaplano na mag-sex. So, hindi na lang sila maghahanda. Pero if it's spur of the moment na nangyari na, at least ang kasalanan nila isa lang. Kesa sa nagplano sila at ginawa pa nila. So may mga ganong reasoning. Yun ang una.
Exactly. And actually, meron po minsan yung kabataan na tinuturuan ng teachers namin, they would ask, ano yung tamang edad para makipagtalik. And of course, we don't say what the right age is. Pero yung isa pong point na binibigay namin is, kaya nyo bang pag-usapan ng jowa ninyo ang tungkol sa sex, tungkol sa contraception? Kasi and then most of the time, they giggle na, ay, nakakahiya, gano'n. And we're like, kung hindi nyo kayang pag-usapan ng ganyan, then most likely, hindi kayo handa na makipagtalik. Sure po? Yes po.
Yung nagtanong kanina, paano kami makakapagturo, wala rin kaming alam. Sa UP Institute of Human Rights, kung saan ako director, meron kami mga trainings ng public school teachers. No? Ilang daan sila na parang ilang buwan namin ginawa. At nakita ko doon na yung mga public school teachers, sinasabi nila na ayaw namin itong batas na ito, itong RPRH law, kasi yung mga anak namin tuturuan nila ng ito sila mismo teachers. Sabi nila naman namin to alam ituro. So, magiging responsibility namin. As parents, gusto namin na dapat kami magturo sa mga anak namin. Hindi yung mga teachers na wala rin namang alam katulad namin. So, tinanong ko sa kanila, so ang gusto niyo magtuturo sa mga bata tungkol sa reproductive health ay mga magulang. Opo, yun ang gusto nila. Majority, halos lahat. Tapos tinanong ko, kayo po, sino po sa inyo dito sa auditorium na ito ang nagturo na sa mga anak ninyo tungkol sa reproductive health? Out of 150, 3 ang nagtaas ng kamay. So sabi ko, kung gusto nyo magulang ang magturo at hindi mga guro, kayo mismo hindi nyo tinuturuan ng mga anak nyo, so sino magtuturo? No? So I think 2 points yun eh. One, malaking responsibility ng DepEd na i-train ang mga teachers nila para makapagturo ng tama. At yun na nga, na kailangan din na makita nila na as parents, teachers as parents, they have a tremendous role. So, information, at saka hindi lang information na knowledge, but communicating, listening, all of these are necessary. And as of now, hindi pa tayo handa, kulang pa ang ginagawa ng pamahalaan para maging bukas ang pag-iisip at kalooban ng mga tao para makinig sa mga kabataan.
Yeah, Attorney Beth, thank you. That's so true. And actually, we've had parents tell us na dapat sa kanila lumapit yung mga bata for information. And then when we ask, So pag lumapit po yung anak ninyo, anong gagawin ninyo? And they say, papagalitan ko. So, we're like, okay, well, that's why hindi sila lumalapit sa inyo. So we're kind of running short on time, but before we go to the next section, I just wanted Prof. Mary to be able to weigh in on, what do you feel are the effects of the family relationship and community on teen pregnancy, and how can children be protected in the home? Hindi na po natin ipi-play yung clip. If you could just weigh in before we go to the next section.
Okay, baka sinabi na nito, but because I was out of the program, but let me reinforce. We also have to look at the boys, and the father, and the relationship between the father and the mother. If it's a loving one, it's an exchange as opposed to an authoritarian one that the sons will go. It's all related to that. So the issue of family, not only about sex education, but family relations, openness, being willing to speak, and focus on the boys. It's always the girls who have to take the responsibility, but the boys also should. They have to know the cycle, the processes also. So that's really, I think, one side that's so lacking. I mean, even in religious sectors, it's always the women who are supposed to be the whole upholders of morality. The men seems to get away with everything. Something's wrong with that, and that's why we have this. That's it.
Yes, Prof. Mary,
Yeah.
it always comes back to the patriarchy. Telling women how to dress instead of telling men not to rape. So I 100% agree with that, and have loved this section of our discussion. It's so great to bring in comprehensive sex ed, especially the data, as Doc Cory mentioned, that sex ed is what helps prevent teen pregnancy. It does not make kids go and have sex. It does not increase the teen pregnancy. It actually reduces it. So thank you so much. This has been a great section. I wish we had more time, but unfortunately, we really only have 30 minutes left of our scheduled program. But I think all of our speakers have agreed to stay a little bit over if we run over. So I hope na papayag din po ang ating audience to allow our panel of experts to have a little bit more time. We're going to have a quick infomercial from my organization, actually in Palawan, from Roots of Health or Ugat ng Kalusugan. And after that, we're going to go straight into the next two clips. So for our tech team, clip 26 and 27 po, the next section is on gender and rights. And we'll see questions that deal with helping pregnant teens who were raped, and also the legal issues. How do we get justice for old rape cases? There are several questions on these two sections. So we'll first see the infomercial and then two sets of questions. And we will ask Prof. Natsi and Attorney Beth to begin the answers of those. Thank you.
Ang Ugat ng Kalusugan ay nagbibigay ng youth-friendly, confidential, and non-judgmental clinical services. We also work to change the system in which young people access care by training stakeholders like BHWs on how to provide non-judgmental, youth-friendly services.
Ang Ugat ng Kalusugan ay nagtuturo ng tamang impormasyon sa mga kabataan patungkol sa sexuality, relationship, how pregnancy happens, at paano gumagana ang contraceptive methods. And we also partner with different government agencies.
Po niya matatanggap sa sarili niya na hindi niya ginusto ang kanyang pagbubuntis, at paano po siya matutulungan, at ano po ang ating maitutulong sa kanya.
Nampahan ng kaso at ngayon nasa kulungan na ang rapist. May laban ba ang babae na umabot pa man ng 16 years old at saka 6 months older siyang buntis, saka sila nagsampa?
Do we have a legal obligation to report child abuse, katulad po ng sexual violence, even if nag-refuse ang guardian or parents for legal help?
Okay, so Prof. Natsi and Attorney Beth, let's go ahead to tackle these
Okay.
questions.
So yung unang tanong, paano matatanggap ng kabataang na abuso sa sarili niya na hindi niya ginusto ang pagbubuntis at paano siya matutulungan? So napakahirap talaga nito at hindi ito dapat akuhin ng mag-isa ng survivor. Dahil una, hindi niya ito kasalanan. Pangalawa, ang vowsy ay isang malawakang problema na bunga ng isang patriarchal na lipunan, sinabi nga ni Ami kanina. Dapat itong bigyang diin sa survivor. Napakahalaga ng buong pag-iintindi at suporta ng mga magulang at iba pang miyembro ng pamilya at mga kaibigan, etc. No, dapat maramdaman ng batang babae ito para hindi siya mag-alangan na lumapit para sa anumang pangangailangan, kahit pakikinig lamang sa kanya. Tuwing may inilalapit po sa akin na isang kaso ng vowsy, agad kong nire-recommenda ang feminist counseling. Ang counseling na ito ay hindi lamang pagbibigay ng feminist psychosocial support, kundi pati na rin ng payo ukol sa mga opsyon ng survivor. Mahalaga rin ang pagbibigay ng agarang pangangailangan, halimbawa medikal, kaligtasan, legal, pati na rin ang mga pangmatagalang socio-ekonomiko na suporta kung sakali tulad ng patuloy na therapy at pangangalaga sa kalusugan, pag-access sa kita, etc. Ang daan patungo sa paghilom ay maaaring mahaba at masalimuot. Ang sentro nito ay ang pagsasakapangyarihan ng kababaihan, no? Ang pagbibigay kumpiyansa sa kanyang sarili, ang pagtataas ng kanyang kritikal na kamalayan, ang paggalang sa otonomiya at karapatan niyang gumawa ng mga desisyon sa kanyang katawan at sa kanyang buhay.
Thank you. Attorney Beth, kayo po, would you like to weigh in?
Okay. Gusto ko mag-react kung sa nagtanong ko sa delay sa pag-report, yung sabi ng 16 years old at 6 months old, saka siya 6 months, o tumagal na 6 months ata bago siya nag-report. Meron na tayong desisyon ng Korte Suprema, People versus Parehas, na sinabi ng Supreme Court na delay in reporting a rape case does not affect the veracity of the charge. So dahil tumagal bago nagsampa ng kaso, hindi ibig sabihin hindi totoo yung rape na nangyari. No? Alam naman natin na may mga biktima ng rape na talagang matagal bago magsampa ng kaso or kung minsan nga hindi man nagpa-file ng case dahil sa kanilang trauma at kahihiyan sa nangyari sa kanila. So sabi ng court sa case na to na delay in prosecuting the crime of rape does not indicate that it is just fabricated o gawa-gawa. And in fact, ang prescriptive period sa batas, 20 years. Kung punishable by resolution perpetua, which is the punishment for rape, may 20 years ka. 20 years after the rape, pwede pa rin, within those 20 years, pwede pa rin mag-file ng case. So, ang pagkakaintindi ko, 6 months lang ang delay. Walang problema dyan, pwede pa rin. So, siguro yung nagtatanong, mahihirapan lang kung masyadong matagal, sasabihin, baka may nakalimutan ka ng detalye, or baka tatanungin ka kung bakit na-delay, pero the fact na naghintay o may dumaan na panahon does not affect the filing of the case. Tapos, may nagtanong din tungkol sa sexual violence, kung is there a duty to report, diba? Parang may gano'n, child abuse case, kung yung magulang mismo ayaw samahan ng bata. Of course, under Republic Act 7610 or yung Anti-Child Abuse Law, there is a duty to report cases of violence against children. So as we said earlier, nabanggit ko na in the Constitution, the primary duty to rear their children, protect their children is the parents. Pero kung yung mga magulang mismo ayaw bigyan ng proteksyon ng kanilang mga anak, then it becomes the duty of other citizens, other members of the family or ordinary citizens to report this to the authorities. Yun lang.
Thank you so much, Attorney Beth. And it's good to know about the legalities. And we have several more questions coming up on legal issues actually pertaining to abortion. Most of these questions directed to you, Attorney Beth, and as well to Doc Abe on the safety and legality of abortion. So we'll see 2 questions on this, and then a question as well on judgmental attitudes towards young people who have abortions. So let's please see these questions, and then Attorney Beth, Doc Abe, and Prof. Natsi, you can tackle the answers to these very big questions. Thank you.
May safe po bang abortion? At legal po ba ito?
Po si Joanna Maria Escala, 19 years old. Nakakatakot po bang magpalaglag ang isang 19 years old?
Naka-experience na po ako dati ng batang nabuntis na sa murang edad po. Sinabi pa niya na okay ngayon mami, nanakunan ako kasi makakapag-aral pa po ako. Yung dapat kong sabihin sa bata na hindi po niya ikasasama ng loob. Ano-ano po yung dapat kong ibigay na payo sa katulad niyang maagang nagbuntis at parang ikinatuwa pa niya na siya ay nakunan.
So go ahead, Doc Abe or Attorney Beth, on the legalities and the safety of abortion.
Right. I will not discuss the legalities of abortion here in the Philippines. Magtatako niyan. Ang problema kasi sa mga abortions dito sa Pilipinas, they do not follow through. Yung mga nagpapa-abort, they do not follow through kung binibigyan pa sila ng family planning, mga ganon. At yan ang palagi nakakaligtaan. Yung mga naaagasan at yung mga nagpapa-abort, hindi sila nabibigyan ng karampatang advice o counseling tungkol sa post-abortion family planning. At isa yan sa mga gaps sa ating sistema. All right. The other thing that I'd like to discuss is kung paano kini-criminalize yung mga nagpapa-abort, yung mga biktima ng abortion, kung paano sila kini-criminalize sa mga hospital na pinupuntahan nila para magamot. Alright. Hindi po tama yon. Alright. Kailangan nilang suporta, kailangan nilang maintindihan kung ano nangyayari sa kanila, kailangan nila ng tamang paggamot at hindi dapat sila ginajudge kung bakit sila ginawa o kung bakit nila ginawa yun. Ito na nangyayari at pag sinabi kong kalimitan, ito ay nangyayari sa buong Pilipinas na ang mga post-abortal patients who go to these facilities, to the hospitals, to the clinics, are judged. All right? And that's really not a good thing. All right? At saka isa pa, pa rin ako na mga naririnig na yung mga halimbawa nagbuntis at nagpa-abort at nalaman ng isang eskwelahan na nangyari nga ito sa teenager na ito, there's a threat that these kids are not anymore admitted to the school, which is another thing that's not good that's happening here in the Philippines. Yun lang ang comment ko dun sa abortion. Thank you.
Thank you po, Doc Abe. Attorney Beth, go ahead po.
Sa ating bansa, hindi legal ang abortion. In fact, hindi man siya illegal kung hindi criminal pa. No? Sa Revised Penal Code, Articles 256 to 259, pinarurusahan ang mga doktor, midwives, at kahit yung babae mismo, yung mga magulang, na may kinalaman sa pag-abort. Tapos, ang penalty nito ay between 2 to 6 years, sa mga ganyan. Ano? So, meron talagang penalty. Kaya, hindi ito nagagawa ng lantad. Ngayon, para sa akin, mahirap. Although sinasabi natin, and the RPRH law is not pro-abortion, paulit-ulit sa batas na yon na hindi kasama yung abortion. Ano? Pero ang kahirapan, dahil masyado natin ito tinatago, bawal, makukulong ka, anong mangyayari doon sa mga babae na hindi nila planado ang pagbubuntis or biktima sila ng incest, biktima sila ng karahasan, sila ay napipilitan pumunta underground kasi hindi sila pwede pumunta sa ospital para magkaroon ng abortion. So kung underground, doon, i-connect ko yun, may nagtanong, safe ba ang abortion? Sa ibang bansa, marami namang abortion na safe dahil nga ginagawa ng mga doktor at sa ospital ginagawa kung may komplikasyon. Ngayon sa atin, dahil hindi siya legal at in fact criminal na pipilitan ng kababaihan na magpunta underground na kung saan ang gumagawa ng abortion ay hindi man mga licensed physicians. Hindi natin alam kung ano mga trabaho ng mga yon. At saka sa mga lugar na hindi man sanitary o malinis. No? So kung nagkakakomplikasyon, mas malaki ang possibility na mamatay ang babae. So kung ang tanong, safe ba? I think there's a way of doing it safely, but that is hardly ever done in the Philippines precisely because it can't be done out in the open. That's it.
Thank you po, Attorney Beth. And therein lies the issue, right? That's why it becomes unsafe because it's underground. Before we go to Prof. Natsi on the the stigma and how we deal with that, I just wanted to add a comment from one of my colleagues at Roots of Health, Amy Perez, who's also a legal student. She made the point that providing pre and post-abortion care is in fact legal, and there is also no legal obligation to report abortions. So there are, the discrimination and the abuse that Doc Abe mentioned absolutely should not be happening. That is illegal because actually providing that post-abortion care, it's part of the law. And in fact, it doesn't just say you have to provide it, right? It says you have to provide compassionate care. So it really, zeroes in on the fact that this is not something that anybody just wants to go through and is happy about doing it. It's hard. And I think the fact that that the word compassion was even added in there is trying to get at that issue, that this is really difficult. So Prof. Natsi, go ahead, please.
I think si Ma Mary wants to say something.
Oh, sure. Sorry. Yes, I didn't see that. Yes, go ahead, Prof. Mary po, and then Prof. Natsi.
Oh, if you're looking sa kulturang Pilipino, there's a very good study done in Siquijor, rural, no? And it seems to be quite generalizable to rural areas. That is concept ng person and concept of ensoulment. In the Philippine legal context, those come together. That's why we have the problem of abortion, because you're sort of person. But sa kultura natin, what they found was that ensoulment happened, that people believe ensoulment happened of conception. Personhood, iba yon. It evolves. Personhood evolves. And it's actually not until maybe the baby's born or even beyond before you can actually recognize it culturally as a person. And you can tell by the death rituals that go with different stages. The first 2 months is dugo lang yan, hindi naman tao. That's very clear to them, no? And then each stage they have different ways of seeing it. But they see personhood and conception iba. And I think we have to look at our cultural roots if we want to understand how to deal with it in a way.
Interesting.
Thank you po, Prof. Mary. Go ahead, Prof. Natsi.
Yes, Ami. Kasi napakadaling ibintang sa mga batang babae, no? Hindi nga sa mga lalaki ang maagang pagbubuntis. Imbis na sa kakulangan sa impormasyon at serbisyo sa SRH, ang komprehensibong edukasyon sa sexualidad, o hindi pantay na lakas, no, o power ng babae at lalaki. Kaya't napuwersa silang makipagtalik. Talagang hindi tayo dapat maging judgmental, paulit-ulit natin ito naririnig, no? At magsalita ng may pagbibintang. Kung ikinatuwa, no, ng batang babae na siya'y nakuna, nang ibig sabihin nito ay ayaw niyang magbuntis at nasolusyonan ang kanyang problema. So hindi naman natin pwedeng igiit na dapat hindi siya matuwa, no, kung yun ang nararamdaman niya. So kung may tunay tayong pag-aalala, no, at pagmamalasakit, yung compassion that you mentioned, Ami, ang ating dapat bigyang pansin ay ang hindi na maulit, ang hindi planadong pagbubuntis. Kahit ang mga batang babae ay may karapatan sa pagpapasya sa kanyang sariling katawan. Ang ating magagawa ay bigyan sila ng kapangyarihang gumawa ng may kaalamang desisyon or informed choices tungkol sa kanilang mga katawan at buhay. Makakatulong din kung mabigyan natin sila ng impormasyon at maituro sa mga SRH providers na adolescent-friendly upang maprotektahan nila ang kanilang mga sarili, hindi lamang mula sa maagang pagbubuntis at mga STI, kundi pati na rin sa hindi ligtas na pagpapalaglag.
Thank you so much, Prof. Natsi. Yes, very, very good points. I'm really sorry we're running short on time, so I'm just gonna ask that the next few questions, which are directed at Attorney Beth, that these clips be played together. It's still related to abortion, but also on provider abuse, which Doc Abe has also mentioned, and discrimination against young people in the schools and in the communities. So pa-play na lang po clips 30 and 31, one after another, and then we'll start off with Attorney Beth for the response.
Ako pwedeng magreklamo sa mga ospital at tumatanggi sa mga nanganganak. Anong maaaring gawin sa mga provider na namamahiya ng mga kabataan sa loob ng pasilidad?
Bakit nakakaranas ang isang batang babae na manganganak sa isang hospital na may mga masasakit na salita na sinasabi sa kanila, wala ba silang karapatan na ipagtanggol naman ang kanilang
Ano ba na hindi pa akyatin sa stage sa isang elementary graduate dahil siya ay buntis?
Ako si Heidi Luby Hortel, 15 years old, nakatira sa Bawang Bug, Sambuanga, Sibugay. Base sa naobserbahan ko, kapag ang estudyante ay nabuntis ay itine-terminate o dinadrop out nila ito. Bakit kailangan na i-terminate o i-drop out ang isang estudyante, lalong-lalo na kapag siya ay graduating?
Okay, Attorney Beth, if you could weigh in, please.
Napakaraming legal questions na natin. Doon sa unang set of questions tungkol sa mistreatment ng ospital o ng mga health professionals, under the DOH, meron silang Health Services Regulatory Bureau. And ito yung nagre-regulate ng operation ng mga ospital sa Pilipinas. The Bureau also acts on complaints against hospitals. No? So kung nyari may tinaasang kayo ng boses o minata o may sinabi sa inyo nakaka-insulto sa inyo, then this is where you can bring your complaints. No? Complaints regarding refusal of medical treatment and the hospital's insulting treatment can also be coursed through this bureau. And then, kailangan din natin maalala na merong RA 8344, di ba? Yung RA 8344, ito yung nagpipinalize, nagpaparusa sa mga ospital na hindi tumatanggap ng mga pasyente. So, it penalizes refusal of hospitals and medical clinics to administer appropriate initial medical treatment and support in emergency or serious cases. So, meron din pong ganong batas at paparusahan po ang mga guilty nun. Tungkol naman sa mga doktor, ang Philippine Medical Association, baka si Doc mas alam nito ni Doc Abe, pero may Philippine Medical Association at meron din silang constitution na ang nagsasabi ay dapat they shall that all members should follow ethical rules, no? And sila rin po ang merong power of discipline over their doctors. Yun po. Tapos, gusto mo ba sagutin ko na rin yung tanong kanina, yung huli, or maya-maya na? Baka...
Yes po, please go on because then we'll just have one more question for Prof. Mary and then we'll go to the final section.
Okay, yung I think tungkol to sa batang nagbuntis tas tinatagal sa school or hindi pinapayagan na mag-graduate. Unang-una, meron tayong Magna Carta of Women. No? At sinasabi doon, hindi pwedeng tanggalin, paalisin o i-dismiss ang estudyante o hindi payagan bumalik sa eskwela dahil buntis. So, klarong-klaro yon. Kaya lang, baka naman dito sa sinabi mong senaryo, sabihin ng eskwelahan na hindi naman namin siya pinagbabawalan. No? Sinasabi lang namin, pwede niyang ituloy lahat pero hindi siya aakyat sa stage during the graduation. Baka sabihin nila, seremonya lang naman yon. So, ang pwede natin sagot doon, ang isang estudyante ay may karapatan, no? Natapusin ang school year. So, kung academically na meet naman niya lahat ng requirements, ang education hanggang pagtatapos. So, that will include the graduation ceremony. So, hindi pwedeng sabihin na tapusin mo lahat ng requirements, bibigyan ka namin ng diploma, basta wag ka lang aakyat na stage. So that is still a violation of the rights of that student. So, na-decision na rin yan sa mga kaso, no? Na ang merong right to education at nasa constitution din natin yon. So the fact that the person is young and pregnant will not have any impact. It will not diminish the right to education of that person. Yun na muna. Salamat.
Thank you so much, Attorney Beth. I'm so sorry. I wish that we could tackle all this for longer, but we're really running short on time. So we have one final set of questions for this segment. The questions are directed particularly at Professor Mary, and they are on Catholicism and reproductive health. So let's listen to the questions.
Bilang isang Katoliko, o kayo na Katoliko, dapat na bang suportahan ang sexual reproductive health kung naniniwala kayo sa pakasaad sa Biblia?
Kung malaking kontra po ang simbahan sa usapin ng CSE, paano po ito mapapalaganap sa buong bansa?
Prof. Mary, go ahead po. Prof. Mary, are you there?
Oh, yeah, answer that one. Yes. First of all, the Bible doesn't really speak about sexual issues. I mean, Jesus himself, if you look at the New Testament, he only speak to social issues when it was an issue of oppression or discrimination. And there are many examples that you sometimes hear on Sunday. So the Bible does not say anything that would condemn, ways of strengthening the body and its health is certainly of women if they are also in the more disadvantaged groups. He was for social justice. So to rely on the Bible doesn't say anything about it, right? Except in terms of compassion for people who are in trouble. I think the other thing, and you can help me on this, that the Bible was written by men from the perspective of men to promote the interests of men thousands of years ago. So the theologians today, and I checked this, I checked with my more progressive friend, theologians, they said, you have to look at the three worlds when you're talking about issues of the Bible related to today. One is, what is the world behind the text? In other words, Israeli today society, Palestinian society at the time. They supported slavery. Do we still support slavery because it was in the Bible during those times? No. All right. So there are comparisons. Then you have the world of the text and the scripture itself, what it says. All right. You have to look at that. But theology, progressive theology today says you have to look at the world in front of the text that defines the meaning of that text for today. All right. So just say, hey, even if it was full, they showed people, had slaves. Doesn't justify that we've abolished slavery, and you could do the same for many of these issues, which are supposed to be in the Bible, which really are not, right? So I think that's the point out, that compassion, justice, and it doesn't talk about these issues, doesn't talk about sexuality. Jesus never talked about homosexuality. So because of how you read the Bible, and today theologians who are progressive would look at it in today's terms. You always have to keep interpreting the Bible in terms of what it means for today's realities, okay, in the context of justice and compassion. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Mary. Yes, context matters. And so often, when people are using the Bible as, as a reason for being against something, they're cherry picking. They're picking certain issues that they feel, okay, this supports my view, while completely ignoring the other things like the points that you raised. So it is just coming up on 4 o'clock, and we have 2 more questions left for our next section, which I think is I have loved all of these sections. It's amazing to hear your insights on these questions. But this last one is a really important one on action points. Ano po ba yung mga pwede nating gawin? What are the things that are actionable in terms of our overall goal to reduce teen pregnancy? So I hope that all of the people watching can stay with us for maybe 15 to 20 minutes after 4. We just have 2 questions, and we'll start with the first clip that is directed at Doc Cory, Doc Natsy, and Prof. Mary. After that, the next question will go straight to Doc Abe because he has another engagement, so won't be able to stay as long. So let's please hear the clips on government response to teen pregnancy.
Tumataas, bakit wala kaming nakikita sa programa ng barangay hanggang nasyonal para mabawasan ito?
Meron po bang programa ang gobyerno upang maiwasan ang maagang pagbubuntis ng mga kabataan?
May programa po ba ang gobyerno para mabawasan o maiwasan ang teenage pregnancy?
Mayroon bang programa ang gobyerno o ginagawang hakbang para maiwasan o malutas ang...
So these are, Doc Cory, then Prof. Natsy, and Prof. Mary. Please go ahead.
Yes, hindi naman natin pwedeng sabihin wala. No? Meron tayong Department of Health, meron tayong Department of Social Work and Development, at meron tayong PAPCO. Siguro ang tanong dyan do we have effective programs, sufficient or adequate to address the problem that we have at hand? Sa PAPCOM ngayon, tignan muna natin ang DepEd. Siyempre, yung binabalak na comprehensive sex education ay isang potentially effective program kung talagang ito ay mai-launch at mai-implement ng mahusay. Dahil sa ating diskusyon kanina, we were always saying that sexuality education helps in preventing teen pregnancy. So again, it's still a problem because it has been years since the CSE principles and standards have been developed. Up to this time, it's on the desk of the Secretary of Education for approval and finally for launching. Sa Department of Social Welfare and Development naman, nandyan yung teenage protection. They have quite parang more of counseling and psychological assistance. Again, how extensive this is, we are not very sure, and how focused it is to the type of problem that we have. So, ang Department of Health, it has its adolescent health program kung saan ang kalusugan ng kabataan ay kasama sa pagtanaw ang sexualidad at ang kanyang sexual health. So these are programs, but what we're saying now is just like what our guests here who posed their questions, bakit parang hindi bumababa? In fact, tumataas pa nga, as I was saying earlier in this program, that the birth rate among the youngest segment of our population, women population, is increasing rather than declining compared to that of the total population. So, siguro tingnan natin sa level ng local government. I had interviewed the health center doctors here in Pasig kung ano how do they implement the reproductive health law, particularly when it comes to teenagers who get pregnant. Ang sabi naman nila, whenever a teen person would come to the center for help, they're quite open. They don't even look at the age, except that if she is a teenager, hindi naman talaga nila totally tinatanggap pero nire-refer sa public hospitals because the issue there is the safety of the young girl because of the probable complications that she might be encountering. Yung mga public hospitals naman, sila naman yung may mga facilities. Ang health centers do not have those kinds of facilities. For example, if complications arise, like if there should be a cesarean section or kung mag-bleed, magkaroon ng bleeding yung batang babae. So, the problem naman, when you get to the hospital, dahil sa pandemya ngayon, hindi natin maiaalis yung sitwasyon ng pandemic eh. They are now they are encouraging online consultations. So when they're referred to the public hospital, they were listed on the online consultation and they're supposed to call and ask and bear out what their problems are. Ang sinasabi naman ng mga pasyente, bakit hindi naman sila binabalikan ng tawag? So it appears that it's getting to be very limited in terms of usefulness for them. Ngayon, sa ospital naman, meron din sinasabi dyan na bakit ba akala ng mga teenagers, pag sila ay pumunta na sa hospital for their prenatal and subsequently for their childbirth, bakit daw sila hinihingan pa ng donation ng blood? I asked also our OB-GYN there, sabi naman nila, it's part of a birth plan. Hindi lamang teenagers, kundi kahit na yung mga adult women who are pregnant. They're being asked to donate blood kasi in the event that they have complications, they bleed or they go into cesarean section, meron naman silang nasa blood bank and they can use those, to help them out of their situation during childbirth. So, yun yung mga programa ng mga gobyerno, na ating gobyerno, nasyonal, at saka how they are implemented at the local level. Siguro yung issue ng how the family planning program is being delivered at the local level, yun pa rin ang problema. Yung parental consent and that the health programs or the health centers and the hospitals are also have their hands tied in terms of providing contraceptive services. Alam naman natin na contraceptive services are one of the most effective ways of preventing teen pregnancy. So yun lamang for now.
Thank you so much po, Doc Cory. Very good points. And Prof. Natsi and then Professor Mary, anything to add? Particularly, I mean, as Doc Cory mentioned, marami po tayong magandang batas, but it's in the implementation that we run into problems. But given COVID and the fact that that's the focus, do you have any other points to add po? Doc Natsi, you're muted.
Shall we get Natsi to start?
Sorry. Yeah, so that I don't repeat already what's been mentioned kasi marami nang nabanggit si Doc Cory. So maybe I'll just focus na lang on that question of, kasi si Doc Cory also mentioned it na tumataas ang teenage pregnancy rates para sa mga batang babaeng may edad 15 at pababa. So yun ang tumataas, di ba? Hindi naman yung other age cohort. So I asked Professor Sabrina Gacad kasi she's been doing research studies on teenage pregnancy. What she thought about it is, tinanong ko bakit tumataas yung teenage pregnancy sa mas mababang age cohort. So ang sagot niya sa akin, ang isang posibleng dahilan ay vowsy, yung pamimilit ng partner na mas matanda o hindi menor na edad, o dahil sa panggagahasa rin. Maaari rin daw dahil sa kuryosidad or curiosity sa kanilang katawan ng mga batang babae. At dahil ang sex education ay hindi nga nagaganap hanggang sa kalaunan at ipinapalagay na nasa paaralan nga ang mga kabataang ito, at hindi sila dapat magtanong tungkol sa kanilang mga katawan, hindi nila alam na maaari silang mabuntis dahil sa vaginal sex. Ayon din kay Professor Gakad at dinagdag niya na awkward ito, so parang contentious. Posible ring may tunay na nadarama ang mga batang babae ng pagmamahal at nais nilang maging intimate sa partner na hindi menor na edad. Nag-aalangan siyang sabihin na panggagahasa ito nang walang buong detalye ng relasyon sapagkat pinawawalang bisa nito ang kanilang karanasan ng koneksyon at mutualidad. So I think that's a point that I'd like to make. And then yung sa COVID, nako, talaga naman bago pa naman ng pandemya, di ba? May mga hadlang na sa pagpapatupad ng SRHR para sa lahat. Kaya hindi nakakagulat na hindi ito nagbibigyan ng focus sa panahon ng pandemya. So talagang mga NGO tulad ng Roots of Health at Likhaan ang talagang kumikilos upang patuloy na magbigay ng serbisyo at impormasyon sa mga vulnerableng populasyon. So I think important rin kasing bigyang appreciation, di ba? Gratitude, respeto talaga yung mga NGOs na nag-step up dahil talagang sila naman ang kumilos na husto nung pandemya. Ayan. Thank you po.
Thank you po. And a final word, Prof. Mary, before we wrap up?
Yeah, just two things. One is to pursue those laws that will get the males who are the father to provide it support, not necessarily to not get married, but just to provide financial support, because that is really so lacking, right? That's one. The second is something we haven't even discussed much, and that is early child marriage. We did some research in Mindanao with Muslim ethnic communities. Why do they send their girls to school, or they don't send? And what we found a very high, they would like to send their girls to school, but once they get into the higher levels where they have to move into town, if there's no family member, especially if it's high school, then they have to be in a dorm, and there's variation in those. So maybe the local government would be stronger in together with the community and forcing a certain amount of supervision and guidance for girls there, because if the fear is they will get pregnant, and so many times if the parents don't know for sure that their girls are safe in town, just get them married early so you can avoid the horror of having the child getting pregnant without marriage. Yes, that's it.
Thank you po, Professor Mary. And I'm so sorry. I have to apologize to all our panelists for rushing you through, but just being mindful on time. We actually have one last section, which is basically on accountability for teen pregnancy. And all of our panelists will be weighing in on this and basically giving their final points. Kasi ito na po yung final question. So this is their final chance for basically their closing message. So after the video, we will start po with Doc Abe as he has another engagement and will have to go. So thank you so much. I hope everyone will still stay for another 15 minutes or so. Salamat po.
Ano po ang dapat managot sa maagang pagbubuntis ng mga bata? Magulang ba o gobyerno? Sino ang maaaring sisihin sa maagang pagbubuntis ng kabataan, magulang o gobyerno?
So Doc Abe, sino ang may kasalanan?
Alright.
Ano po yung accountability?
Accountability, bakit magulang at gobyerno? May accountability din yung provider. Myths and misconceptions actually start from the provider. Kung halimbawa, ang mga kabataan ngayon, marami sa mga providers na nagsasabi na hindi ka pwede mag-IUD, maski yan ang gusto mo. Hindi ka pwede mag-implant, maski yan ang gusto mo. Accountable din kami. Kasi hindi namin alam o hindi sufficient ang aming kaalaman kung ano ang pwedeng ibigay sa mga kabataan para maiwasan ang pagbubuntis at ang pagkakaroon ng infeksyon. So I sort of include us in the people who are accountable for this mess, ito increasing teenage pregnancy. Yun lang po ang masasabi ko.
Maraming salamat po, Doc Abe. Attorney Beth, would you like to go next?
Yes. Okay. I think that both government and parents have a responsibility.
But I will base it on the Constitution, Section 12, Article 2 of the 1987 Constitution, which I referred to earlier, says that the natural and primary right and duty of parents in the rearing of the youth for civic efficiency and development of moral character shall receive the support of government. So from the Constitution itself, the primary responsibility is with the parents. Kung nabubuntis ang mga kabataan dahil may kakulangan ng mga magulang, hindi sila nag-usap, hindi sila uh, nagbigay ng tamang payo, hindi sila nakinig sa sinasabi ng mga anak nila. Kasi yun ang pinipilit ng mga magulang, kaya ayaw nila ng RH law. Dahil, dapat magulang ang may karapatan. So, here, this is your responsibility. This is the responsibility, first and foremost, of the parents, which shall receive the help of government. Okay. So, government has a responsibility as well because pagdating sa mga pinipirmahan nating mga convention sa international law, ang tagipirma naman yung Estado, which is the government. No? So, the government says, recite the ICCPR, the ECOSOC, the CEDAW, Convention on the Rights of the Child, lahat dyan gobyerno ang pumirma. And therefore, government has a duty to protect, fulfill, promote the rights of children, the rights of adolescents. And makikita natin ito sa mga programa. As we said, CSE, no? Hanggang ngayon, hindi pa na ilalatag ng DepEd, tapos mga programa ng DOH, kailangan pang pagbutihin. And so, I think that may kakulangan din na ang gobyerno. Kaya, nandito tayo sa where we are. No? May ganitong problema dahil may kakulangan. But I think that because it is a primary right and duty of the parents, sila yung talagang may responsibility. Pero ang government ay dapat magbigay ng mga programa para when the parents want this, then these programs are available. So, kailangan training din, as I said, counseling not just for young people, for the parents and for the teachers as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Doc Cory, would you like to go next?
Yes, it looks like that we're all together in viewing that our teenagers who get pregnant are victims of what's happening in the society. And who are the important elements in the society who should be accountable for what our teenagers are going through or have gone through. Sabi natin, family, yes. Family, the community, the smaller community, and the government. So, inad ko rin yung smaller community kasi hindi sila masyadong nakakatulong sa ating mga nagkakaproblemang mga kabataan because, they are judgmental. Marami pa rin judgmental. I-add ko rin pala some institutions like the church, the Catholic Church. Kasi yung pagdaloy ng ating contraceptive program or family planning program ay nagiging obstacle sila because of the tenets of the Catholic Church. Yes, I think most of us are Catholics, but as we go through the reproductive health bill, the fight for the reproductive health bill, we know that they have been an obstacle to the passage of the bill. Tapos pagdating din sa community level, we've heard about priests in the churches who would be preaching against family planning methods, and likewise yung mga actions nila na ayaw nilang bigyan ng communion yung mga alam nila na gumagamit ng mga contraceptives. And of course, then the government. The government has its responsibility to the people na magsagawa ng mga programa, maggawa ng mga batas, at gawin itong mga effective programs, hindi lamang basta nakasulat na batas, para yung magagaling naman tayong Pinoy. Magaling tayong mag-isip, na mag-analyze, tumingin kung saan talaga ang mga effective points so that we can solve a problem. However, we're very weak in implementation. So yun, victim ang bata, victim ng buong society. And in the society, we have the family, the neighborhood, the smaller community, certain institutions, and then the government. Maraming salamat.
Thank you so much po, Doc Cory. Very good points. So now we'll go to Professor Mary.
Yes, just say that while yes, of course, they are victims, but let's not forget they're not necessarily helpless victims. In social science, we say they also have agency. They have ideas about what they want to do, and the thing I want to emphasize is institutions that do have responsibilities: the medical sector, the schools, the government, the church. They have to listen to young people and what they're saying today, and because that's the world that they come from, and they also need, a little guidance. But how about guidance on the other side? Learn both ways. Young people have ideas which are responding to today's world. The other institutional authorities listen and try to come to terms with what is real and to both sides. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Mary. Again, so important for us to remember the young people that are at the core of this issue that we're discussing. So thank you for raising that again. And finally, last but certainly not least, Professor Natsi, your thoughts on this, please.
Yes, thank you very much, Ami. So siguro emphasize na lang na parehong magulang at gobyerno ang may parehong responsibilidad para maiwasan ng hindi planado o maagang pagbubuntis ng mga batang babae. So napakahalaga, gusto ko i-emphasize to na magkaroon ng bukas at hindi mapanghusgang pag-uusap tungkol sa sex sa pagitan ng mga magulang at kanilang mga anak. So sana maaga pa lamang ay ginagawa na natin ito bago pa maging teenager ang mga bata para mas mapadali na ang pag-uusap sa kanilang paglaki. Tapos dahil rights-based nga ang SRHR, sa adolescent SRHR, ang duty bearer ay ang pamahalaan, samantalang ang mga rights holders ay ang kabataan. So may obligasyon, kagaya na ng binanggit ni Attorney Beth, ang pamahalaan na respetuhin, protektahan at tuparin ang mga karapatang ito. So para sa mga kabataan naman, kailangang itaas ang kanilang kritikal na kamalayan upang maangkin nila ang kanilang mga karapatan sa impormasyon at serbisyo sa SRH, komprehensibong edukasyon sa sexualidad, integridad ng katawan, at pagsang-ayon sa pakikipagtalik at kasal. May papel din ng mga organisasyon, ayon kay Professor Gakad ulit. Kailangan natin isipin kung paano mahihikayat at masusuportahan ng mga batang babae na maghanap ng mga safe spaces kung saan nila maaaring dalhin ang kanilang mga katanungan. Dahil kung sa palagay nila ay hinuhusgahan sila, magtatago sila. So kung sa anumang punto ang mga kabataan ay nagdududa o naiilang, may mga safe spaces na po tulad ng Lunas Collective. So Lunas Collective na nasa Facebook, Likhaan o Roots of Health, saan maibabahagi nila ang kanilang karanasan at makakahanap sila ng suporta sa kung paano nila mapapangalagaan ang kanilang mga sarili. So yun lamang po. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you so much, Doc Natsi. That was like the perfect last statement kasi yun na po yung parang wrap-up of some of the very important points that we've discussed. So dito po nagtatapos ang ating first virtual town hall on teen pregnancy. So maraming salamat po sa ating amazing panelists, Doc Abe Marinduque, Attorney Beth Pangalanan, Councilor Cory Raimundo, Professor Mary Rosales, and Professor Natsi Verceles. You have all been amazing. It has been my privilege to listen to your ideas and thoughts. Maraming salamat po for making the time. Special thanks din po sa ating fabulous sign language interpreters, Ms. Catherine Joy Villarreal and Mr. John Lesters G. Dig. Maraming salamat din po sa 500 plus na participants who joined us today. Napakaganda po ng mga comments ninyo. Thank you for your support. Thank you for tuning in. Maraming salamat din po sa ating 27 partner campaigners for Girl Power, our campaign to reduce unplanned teen pregnancy. Maraming salamat din po sa Dutch Embassy, Global Affairs Canada, Interpares Canada, Thank you for your support and for joining us today. And certainly, last but not least, maraming salamat po sa Likhaan for being our lead convener for this event. Bigyan po natin sila ng big round of applause. Doc Junis, to Joy, Eric, Sir June. I know there's so many of you. I'm sorry I can't mention everyone, pero none of this could have come together without all your very hard work. So maraming salamat po. Like we said, this is the first of many events to come. So we hope that you will stay tuned dahil marami pa pong mga events to build on this advocacy for prevention of teen pregnancy. And ngayon po, may final treat po kami para sa inyo. To close out the event, we have a wonderful performance. So please stay for just a couple more minutes para pakinggan niyo po ang napakagandang awit ni Bayang Barrios, Kababaihang Kapangyarihan.
Kababaihan ay makapangyarihan, baguhin ang lipunan, santinig ang kailangan sa pagbabago ng ating kasaysayan. Tayo'y may kapangyarihan, pandayin ang bukas. Sa hilaga at silangan, kanluran, katimu, milyong lakas at tinig, pinagtibay ng kapatiran. Kumilos na ngayon, ang bukas ay di na maghihintay. Katarungan, kalayaan, pagkakapantay-pantay. tibay ng kapatiran. Kumilos na ngayon, ang bukas ay di na maghihintay. Katarungan, kalayaan, pagkakapantay-pantay. Ang pagbabago ay ating sinimulan, isang hakbang na paninindigan. Harapin ang bukas ng may pagpapasya, kababaihan, makapangyarihan. Harapin ang bukas ng may pagpapasya. Kababaihan, makapangyarihan.